Hey everybody, and welcome back to Let's Play JBLP1. We are on level 66, Science Museum. That's actually not too far off from where it appeared in CCLP4, isn't it? At any rate, this level was kind of an interesting exercise. I wanted to make something that was fairly inspired by, or at least close to, some of Ida's levels, and specifically I was thinking of stuff like, the key issue when making this one. And the defining feature of that level for me was like there was this series of areas in the level, but they were all kind of separated by a 3-tile wide corridor you could walk through. So see how there's all these like paths we can go through that are 3 tiles wide. I don't know why, but I always thought that was kind of cool, and that part is kind of funny. But yeah, the name of this level and kind of the general open-ended nature of it came from, once again, an escape level. Yeah, I can't get enough of being inspired by escape levels. And the one in question was like a really easy one, and it didn't even look anything like this. It was just a bunch of random challenges that I think had a pretty simple solution when all was said and done. But I thought it would be kind of fun to make something that was very kind of like, hey, here's a cool little machine that you might see at a museum, which is what inspired the connection between the title and what eventually came to be. So now that's going to be ticking the rest of the level. I might have wanted to do that last. But yeah, the ultimate goal is to collect red keys. So this room was a lot of fun. Once you reveal every wall in this maze, its layout will look like you just found it from a certain point of view. That's a little stealth Star Wars reference there. But yeah, the whole premise behind this is that the blue wall layout is what this will eventually look like from the other side. So see how that little hook shape there is already there? It's pretty much that. You just have to oof on everything to make the layout reappear again. I don't know, I thought this idea was kind of funny. It was sort of inspired by Pie Guys if it looks like a maze. I should probably do this one, since this is some tricksy dodging here, which is not really all that bad. Alright, so the last one involves this little thing here. So this is a, like a get the stuff to a water tile challenge, and I rather like this. I feel like these days, a lot of these kinds of challenges end up being about, like, whatchamacallit, like, blocks underwater. But this one is interesting in that it's not really about that, which I think is kind of cool. And I think we have enough for, yeah, we just need those two. So you just need to get the tank to just run across the whole path. I think it was Tyler who inspired me to put water under the tank, which I thought was really cool. And we just need to do this now. Alright, so now all we have left is to get to the exit. Yeah, the other level I designed with this kind of idea was Exhibit Hall, which... have we played that one yet? I don't think we've even gotten to that one yet. Alright, Layered Labyrinth, which has the password trap on it. That was, I promise that was randomly generated. That was not a password that I typed in manually. So yeah, this level, this was inspired by a level that I don't see anybody talking about these days. It was Anders Kasjorg's, I don't even know if that's how you pronounce his name. But it was Anders' level 2-layer maze, I think is the name of it, from Anders K1. I remember being very wowed by that when I was younger. I thought that was such a cool concept, just having like a toggle maze where you got to occasionally switch the toggles up and stuff. Ultimately, I liked his take on this idea a lot more than what I did with it. I think the issue with my take on it was that a lot of this switching is very frequent, and it also tends to be, at least the effect of it, tends to be very localized. So like here, this bottom section is pretty sectioned off. Like, you're not going to see a whole lot of pathways in here. So yeah, at the time I felt really clever for making this. Now I don't think this is one that I would consider very quote-unquote top tier. In fact, I probably shouldn't have even submitted... Wait, did I submit this for CCLB 5? I feel like I did, because I played this recently. I think I submitted it. I'm pretty sure I did. I probably shouldn't have. I could have replaced it with something else. That is kind of the one downside of making a bunch of levels after submissions end, is that you're hitting yourself on the head for not doing it earlier. But that's just the timing of when we started the Walls of CC1 project, and I'm kind of glad it happened when it did. I think it was just the right time. Alright, so I need to find a way to get in there. So it's going to have to be from down there, yeah, this way. So yeah, stuff like this where you get to like kind of come at things from a different angle, I think are some of the more interesting parts of this maze, because they force you to think outside the box a little bit. And I think the fact that there are like toggle walls that are separating certain areas instead of normal walls can often make things rather deceiving. They often make you think, oh hey, you know, I can approach this from this angle, but you really don't have the means to do it unless you start toggling from a completely different vantage point, and I think that's kind of neat. But yeah, if I made this today, I'd probably make it so that there was a little bit more of a dynamic layout. In other words, it's not quite so like segmented or compartmentalized. How do I get over there? Oh, I see. I have to go around this way. See, like this right here I really liked. I think the other thing I might do is I'd probably put less or fewer chips in the level too. So this is one thing that Jeffrey has really opened my eyes up on, is a maze does not necessarily have to have things at every end point. You can totally put stuff in the level that's just there, you know, as a dead end. Like, you know, right there, or actually, no, right here, this little wall thing. I don't think that necessarily has to have a chip in it. Okay, I'm just wandering around. I need to actually be more systematic about this. But yeah, the original title of this level was Multi-Maze, which is not a really cool title. That sounds kind of cheesy. So that's why I changed it to something a little more interesting. Whether it's actually interesting or not, I'll leave up to you, but I thought it was okay. I feel like we missed a bunch of stuff down here, so I'm going to go wander around here a bit more. Did I miss stuff? Yes, I did. I missed this for sure. And I can go in here, which does nothing. See, like that right there, I think that's kind of cool. Like having a dead end where you can do that little turnstile, but that ends up leading to nothing at all. I think that's kind of neat. But yeah, the whole bottom section of this level feels like a bit of wasted potential. I think it could have been a lot more integrated with the rest of the layout. That would have been neat. Okay, I need to find a way to get inside that, but I think I'm going to have to approach it from that right side. Let's give that a shot. Yeah, here we go. So I can get this one here, which is what I wanted, but I also need to get in over there, which I think I'm going to need to do. Like this part of the level I like, this right section. I think this manages to be interesting. I think the other thing I might do differently with this is I would put fewer toggle buttons, because I think that makes it a little too... again, segmented is the word that comes to mind here. So it's been about 1 week since I last recorded, and I haven't really done a whole lot with the Walls of CC1 project in that time, mainly just because we've all been scrambling to get our CCLP5 submission TWSs recorded. I know Josh has been quite a bit. And I know this sounds kind of a little bit like well, you don't technically need that, but it really does help. And what I'm thinking of here is when other people make levels consistently, it really inspires you to get the creative juices flowing when you see the kinds of things they do. I know Josh has mentioned in his Let's Play that, you know, I've been a source of creative inspiration for his levels in this whole thing, and I'm really happy that that's the case. You know, that's not something I want to take lightly, because I do think that when you share things with other people, it should be to inspire them, and you know, it shouldn't be to try to outdo the other person or whatever. I know that we are ultimately probably going to be submitting a lot of these things for future level sets, but in some ways, I'm kind of glad, you know, that I'm coming back to this this topic at this point. I'm kind of glad, yeah, that is a dead end, that we did have the CCLP5 deadline hit. How do you get over there? I don't understand this. Am I just approaching this from the wrong... Now I'm getting lost. And I think... I feel like there would have been more pressure to make our levels more difficult had we had the deadline looming. I know, like, Jeffrey... It feels like Jeffrey likes to, like, release level sets right when a CCLP submission deadline hits, which I feel like is really good for getting visibility around the time that voting would happen. I don't know if that's intentional or not, by the way, but if it is, kudos on that. That's very clever marketing. But I feel like in our case, just because, you know, the set itself... Where do you get in through here? This is weird. The set itself really hadn't gotten a whole lot of stuff in under its belt at the time. Wait a minute. Oh, I bet it's this. We totally went that direction. We should have gone down. Yeah, here we go. This is how you do it. See, like that little bit right there, I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, because we didn't have very many levels, I mean, it just wasn't realistic to make a whole set by the time the submission deadline came around. And, you know, Jeffrey's Trading Places, or Jeffrey and Josh's Trading Places set was in development for several years. And a lot of that was Jeffrey's half of the level, since, you know, he had a whole lot of real-life stuff going on. So that's totally understandable. Alright, Layered Labyrinth. Primary colors. Okay, I think this might have been... Was this added in after the fact, or was this... Oh man, I can't remember. At any rate, this was yet another level that had a concept inspired by an escape level, although the way that this ultimately works gameplay-wise is way different, and it's pretty much all original. So the whole shape of the level was inspired by the escape level, where there's like this red or green, red, blue thing here. And I actually made this into a CC2 level that apparently did pretty well in CC2LP1 voting. At least I think it did. I could be misremembering that. But I want to say it did decently. But yeah, here you're forced to basically go down this way, and then you get to clone a bunch of fireballs. So yeah, the reason why I bring this whole thing up with, like, getting creative inspiration is there's a topic I've been wondering about for a long time, and I think I've touched on this maybe a little bit in the past, but it's kind of come to mind again more recently, and oh, whoops, I didn't realize those were looping. Okay, there we go. This came to mind a little more recently. I'm not sure what brought it up, but the topic is basically like, when do you think it's appropriate to get feedback on levels? And this is something that came to mind, especially with Trading Places, where, you know, Josh was a lot more open about like showing off levels during that whole process. Like he included some of them in compilation sets and whatnot. Whereas Jeffrey was much more secretive about his levels. And I think it may be a little too secretive to a certain degree. I mean, he did preview a few, so maybe I'm forgetting some of them. But I can understand why. Like, I don't blame him for doing that. I get the reason. You know, you want people to experience things in the context that you want them to experience them in. And so, you know, just seeing them in a compilation set or something, or maybe eventually like in someone's realm set that somebody throws together that's completely outside of that context, feels like it's not the stuff that you originally intended them to see first. So I can understand that point of view. So yeah, that's Primary Colors. Not one of my favorites, but I do like it. It feels like one of those levels that kind of skirted the edge of almost getting into official sets, but it didn't quite make it. I'm guessing it probably never will, just because we have things like color coordination and other color-themed levels. Alright, roguelike. So fun fact about this level in my CCLP5 submissions is now a time crunch level and has a time limit of 100. Because I figured that would make it a little more interesting. Collect 1 key and 1 chip in each room. Remember, patience is a virtue. I probably should have changed that hint. I don't think I changed that hint in the new version. So yeah, you know, if the premise is that, you know, I want people to see this like at the spot that it's supposed to be in my set, you know, with all the surrounding context that it has, that totally makes sense. And this is kind of getting back to some of the things we talked about before, where it's like you have levels being viewed individually, but there's also the corporate context that they appear in, right? Like you ultimately have a set of levels that they show up in. And I think this is one of those things where it's been kind of hard for some people, and I include myself in this, to get into CC2 level design, because CC2's native level editor is by its very nature designed for individual level creation. And like the process of getting things into a set is so manual with just the native CC2 tools. Thankfully we've had editors come out that can handle that. But yeah, it's one of those things where, whoa, I almost died there. Ooh. If this were me playing the updated version, I would only have 3 seconds left on the clock. I definitely wasted a lot of time at the bottom, for sure. Yeah, that's roguelike. This is, I want to say, did I add this after the 100 level version? I feel like I did, but I could be wrong. No, maybe not. I don't remember, but at any rate, fun level. It's a blob level. I didn't really make many blob levels back in the day, so this was kind of my attempt at making like a blob dance kind of thing, but a lot more reasonable in bigger rooms. So that's that. QR code. Okay, so this level has a funny story behind it. So I was making a website for my photography business that I had kind of started as like a side hobby back in the day. And I wanted to like post a QR code online, and then I started realizing, hey, this could be like a blue wall maze. Especially since you got things like this in the corners, like the little concentric squares, where you can easily make like a chip inside like a thing like that. I don't know if you can actually scan this QR code, like if you were to look at this in the editor. I'd be curious if I could do that. But yeah, this level is pretty open-ended. There's no invisible walls, it's just all blue walls. So, not a really difficult one. You can just get that right there. This might have been more interesting as like a time crunch level, honestly. But, oh well. But yeah, the, where was I in my whole thing about getting feedback and all that? So yeah, I'm rambling, so I'm sorry it's been taking so long to get to the point I'm trying to make here. I can understand, like, if you're a designer and you want people to experience your levels in the original context that you built them to be in. I think my thing is, for me at least, and this is a very personal thing, this is not like something I expect other people to adhere to or anything of that sort. A lot of my perspective on this is admittedly very colored by the era of Pie Guy's site. And I know I keep coming back to this because I mention it like in almost every one of these videos, but I think when Pie Guy's site was at its peak, what made it hard is what I basically mentioned last time was, you know, if you release a level on there, it's pretty much set in stone. I mean, yes, you can make minor changes, but with all the people rapidly optimizing on Pie Guy's site, under construction, this is another one of the easy JBL or JL1 levels that was made toward the end of that set. Certain tasks must be accomplished before undertaking others. This is kind of a bunch of junk is positioned everywhere, and I'm not sure if I was supposed to let go of that. I'm going to say no because of this glider cloner. I don't know if getting that was correct, but I'm going to say no just because we're at the beginning, and I don't want to botch this up. Let's just bridge here and see what happens first. I have a feeling we're going to need to clone a lot of blocks. Can I get that? So yeah, because people were rapidly optimizing all the time, it's like if you made one little change that could negate what somebody did, you're pretty much making your level very unoptimizable in some people's eyes. And that was like a big crime. And I know I sound like I'm exaggerating that, but it really was one of those things that was really tricky to work around because you couldn't really adjust the order of your levels or the time limit of your levels or anything like that. So I remember, and I keep bringing up this set too as an example, but Tom R1 was one of the most popular sets of that era, and it had levels in it that were flat out busted. And, you know, Tom, of course, being the designer, wanted to make sure that people got to experience the intended solution to those levels, right? So he ended up building... Whoops, I did not mean to do that. He ended up building entirely different levels in the set after the ones that were busted as, like, replacements for those levels. But they couldn't actually replace them. They had to stay ahead of the ones that he already did because those ones were set in stone already. And yes, you know, you could argue, well, you could just make a new level and just have it be hopefully exactly achievable as far as the build time and all that stuff. But it's like, I just can't imagine what that must be like. I mean, that would be really tricky to try to do. And I'm trying to remember how you ultimately beat this here. Okay. Am I busting this? Because I don't think I actually need the glider cloner here, do I? I might actually be busting this by bringing blocks in here, because I think you're supposed to use this glider cloner. Oh man, okay. Well, at any rate, I guess we now have 2 blocks in here. Cool, alright, well, I'm going to get rid of this. And let's see where this takes us. Oh. Oh, if that were links, we would have been screwed there. Okay. Oh, I was supposed to do that before doing any of the block stuff. Okay. Oh, whoops. Okay, this is actually tripping me up a little bit here. Okay, I think I see how you're supposed to do this, though. You're supposed to go here. So this isn't busted. At least I don't think so. And there's no point to partial posting it either. That was me trying to be way too clever. Um, but yeah, I think the fact that you couldn't really have all this freedom on Pie Guy's site meant that the process of designing levels was just very piecemeal. And basically, you had to rely on whatever like feedback you got from people, as far as like if your level was busted or not. Because a lot of people, especially back then, we didn't really have very good benchmarks for if a level was busted or if a level was compatible in both rule sets or anything like that, because people didn't really play in links at that point. Like, it was very much MS focused, and even that, busts. I think there was kind of a part of some people that liked busts, and that's why optimizing the levels was so interesting. You found busts and they could be exploited, and it felt really cool to find them. But it would also be really annoying if you were a designer and you were put into that position of having to then redesign the level so that you could upload it, hopefully bust free. Emphasis on the hopefully part of it. And this part, I need to ferry the bugs over to the bombs, or at least some of them. Why'd I do that? That was stupid. Okay, let's not be dumb anymore, guys. But anyway, all this to say, I think my perspective on this whole thing is very much colored by the fact that I appreciate now that we no longer really put such a premium on uploading sets to Pie Guy's site. Like, no offense to Pie Guy. And I know he probably does not have the time right now to completely revamp that site without destroying everything that's already on it from just from a data governance perspective and a functionality perspective and everything. So, I don't envy the position he would be in if we were all suddenly clamoring for him to update everything on that site. But the fact that we don't have to really worry about that anymore means that we now have all this freedom to build out levels in whatever order we want and then reorder them in whatever order we want when we're done with them. And I think that's what really had me going during the Walls of CCLP1 project, was just getting to post my updates online and see what people thought of them. And I know that, feedback from other people shouldn't be everything, but it's one of those things that keeps me going, and it helps me get inspired for making future levels, especially if somebody has an idea or like, hey, why not try tackling this thing, or, just something like that that's gives you something to shoot for. The other thing is, I'm not sure I trust myself when it comes to finding problems with my levels. I know a lot of people have found issues with my levels, and as far as like busts and all that go, and it's kind of nice to have that fresh pair of eyes on things. I know that could easily be reinterpreted as, oh, you're using other people to play test your own stuff. But I really do think that fresh perspective is necessary. I mean, at work, I do like quality control on a lot of the stuff that we produce from a marketing perspective, making sure that all this stuff works correctly and all that. But I only do that if somebody else does the stuff, because if it's my own stuff, I could easily miss that, I mean, even Jeffrey, who prides himself on, like, stepping away from a level. I mean, there's been some issues with some of the Trading Places levels, but, he's able to fix them, when he's seen my videos and stuff like that. That's not a dig at Jeffrey or anything like that. That's just me saying that, I think we all have the potential to miss stuff. It doesn't really matter who you are. Anyway, this is Guard Dogs, and this level has an interesting history. So, long ago, there was a level by Richard Field called Guard Dogs, and it was a part of a 2-level level set with a level called Caitlin's Maze, which was itself in CC2 in the base game. And then it turns out the Guard Dogs level was a rejects level. I didn't know this until Joshua Bone compiled and released the CC2 rejects set. But It was apparently in there, and I kind of wish I had known that this had existed in that context. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have made this level. So the original level had like a bunch of teleports in the middle, and I had actually made a version back in the John L1 days that ripped that off a lot more obviously, like a lot more explicitly than this might make it look like. But this one, I decided to kind of go a bit of a different direction and showcase some, um, like, you actually have to blow up bombs and stuff. And I don't know. I thought it was kind of a cool idea. It appears that I never actually optimized it just based on what the timer looks like, although I can kind of see why. But yeah, this was my attempt at kind of doing a little more with the idea. I kind of wish I didn't do this thing where you basically had to just do the same thing 4 times, but I've talked enough about that. Anyway, that was my little rant on, not rants really, but just kind of my thoughts on the whole feedback thing. I do think feedback is valuable, but I also understand how maybe getting it iteratively throughout the design process can maybe dilute the overall experience when the people who have been looking at it have seen the level in the development context, and then when you release it, now you suddenly have this new complete set context that they have to reintegrate all of that with. Anyway, I can see both sides of the argument. Anywho, backtrack. So this level, this was level like 53, I think, in CCLP 3. And this level was heavily inspired by Spiral from Joshua Bones' Josh B. Link's set. And I kind of wanted to make my own take on the idea. That was kind of back when I was much more overt about ripping off other people's ideas. And I kind of want to just focus on the item swapping as a means of unlocking more blocks, and then ultimately using the blocks to unlock more of the slide via like items like this key up here. I think I ultimately like this level more than Spiral just because you're not having to do so much back and forthing, and then the central slide thing is pretty central. This was originally one long slide, but you couldn't see the end of it, so I ended up changing that there. But yeah, this is still a level that I like a lot. If I ever do like a big compilation set, this will probably be in it. Even if it is not an original idea, you know, I do like the layout of it. The wall pattern is kind of neat too. I kind of want to see what I could do with this wall pattern again. I might do a level in JBLP1 with this. And I need to do the toggle switching. Where did I did it over here. Yeah. I like how you have to revisit some areas too. That's a little tricky. You don't want to slide right into the bugs. And that controls the fireball cloner, which we can now use to get the blue key. Now the bomb's gone. And now we can just go through here. But yeah, the fun thing about doing this Walls of CC1 project has been that the feedback I can get with the group and be inspired by that, but then the rest of the community doesn't have to see the set until it's done. So in some ways, that's kind of the best of both worlds. And I think it works. You know, you know, there's a set group of people who can effectively playtest the levels and provide that feedback, but then you also have people who are not in that camp. And I think this is in some ways kind of an extension of how a lot of level design was going on during like the CCLP1 era in the mid 2010s. Because back then we had like people doing like forming playtest groups on Skype and all that. I remember that was kind of a thing back then. Now we just need to press this. Like, I remember Michael Warner. Man, I miss Michael. He would often be a willing playtester for a lot of people. Alright, Chip Skate. This was definitely a case of a level that was made just for the title. And the whole premise here is that you have a bunch of skates that you can't really get. And you just have to find the one that you can get. And then with that you can get all the rest of them. Which I might actually do here just for fun. So yeah, this is just an ice maze. There's nothing particularly great about this one. In some ways it was inspired by, of all things, what was it called? Skate Park? It was a level from Ida 4. Another one of Ida's sets. And the whole thing is relatively linear. Like, it's not like South Pole or things like that where there's loops and stuff. I seem to recall this being a fairly linear level. Although, wait, am I back at the start? Yeah. Maybe there is a loop. Yeah, I think there actually might be now that I'm looking at it. So yeah, let's just get lost and find some skates. I think this was kind of my attempt at making like just an ice maze level for CCLP1. That was one thing about CCLP1 that I feel we could have done better. And I think the set ultimately did fairly well, but I think during the submission process for that, a lot of people seem to get very hung up on the whole idea of trying to make something that was supposed to be a quote-unquote replacement for CC1. And I think for a lot of people what that ended up looking like was, let me try to copy the ideas of CC1 but re-implement them, and I count myself in this. And then I think once we got into the actual like playtesting and all that, of submitting levels, or submitted levels, I was starting to realize at that point, I was like, okay, this is not really probably the best thing you could be doing right now, you know. You could probably be exploring some more original ideas than this stuff. I don't know. It also kind of felt like there were certain levels that were, and people still do this to a very large extent. There were a lot of like slotting kinds of wishes, like, ooh, what's going to be the nuts and bolts level, or things like that. Am I going in like every possible direction but the right direction? I feel like I am. But yeah, it was just one of those things where I think because we were using the original set as the only reference point in a lot of those conversations, it could often blind us from thinking up new ways or entirely new ideas to implement. That's why I ultimately gave 5s to a lot of Andrew Menzies levels, was because I felt like he had a lot of really cool concepts that weren't really done before, but or at least done in the way that he was doing them. But at the same time, like, he was really good at making them feel fresh while also appropriate for that set. So like levels like Repair the Maze or Corral or what's another good one? Nitroglycerin is one of the ones I'm thinking of. Where do you go here? I should probably actually concentrate on this. Anyway. I feel like there's like a really long path here. I'm trying to remember. Wait, is this it? I think we may have found it. I think this is it. Yeah. There we go. There we are. Alright, let's get all the skates for fun. I should have had like a phase 2 to this level. That's one thing I'm noticing in level design a lot these days, is that having a second phase to things tends to get often put in a positive light most of the time. And I say most of the time because I think there's some phase 2s that can feel maybe a little extraneous, or maybe like they don't add a whole lot to the experience. But there are some cases, and especially when it comes to mazes, I feel like mazes are one of the best things to do a Phase 2 on, just because when you play the maze, you're fairly constrained by walls or paths. But if you can open up the level at the end, it's a lot more fun to just roam around freely and just experience that that feeling of being able to go pretty much wherever you want. There's something cool about that, you know, I really like that a lot. Anyway, CCLP5 submissions are about to close tomorrow at the time of this recording. It's January 30th. And I don't know how much, like, more often I might be recording these videos here. I kind of want to stick to once a week for now because I'm not really in a rush to do this like I was with Trading Places. And that might speed up here at some point, but I'm pretty satisfied with where I am. Alright, Pest Control. I forgot the name of the level, but this was heavily inspired by one of Daniel Bowmeister's levels. This spot is safe. And I originally made this way back in the JL1 era. In fact, I think this is one of the first levels I ever made in that set. It may have even been around the John L1 era, but under, like, with a slightly different layout and stuff. But yeah, this level, this was kind of my attempt at making, like, a bug-themed level and Paramecia-themed level. The one criticism I would have toward it now is that the level is basically the same on either side. And it's kind of funny that this came up tonight because I just finished making a level for Walls of CC1 that kind of had this mirror kind of layout. And you can kind of extrapolate from that what you think the layout is from CC1. But I had this idea to kind of do like a color coordination thing with it. But at first, it was kind of a challenge not to make it, you know, too out there as far as like what things corresponded to what other things on either side. So I tried to make it a little more color-coded. And I think the thing that was really challenging about it was that I didn't want to, like, make both sides feel the same, you know? So it was kind of interesting walking that tightrope of, I need to make the layouts on each side the same, but I also need to make sure that, ooh, I like this last room. It kind of reminds me of up the block. I basically need to make sure that the level itself on each side feels different enough. Alright, I'm going to stop there for now. But next time, we're going to continue onward here with When Push Comes to Shove. We've done 10 levels. Okay, that's not too bad. Yeah, okay. So we'll do When Push Comes to Shove next time. So until then, thank you all so much for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you in the next video. So take care, and I will see you then.